The Samsung Galaxy Note 8 is already IP68 certified, which is a fancy way of saying it's already waterproof. So do you still need waterproof cases like the Ghostek Nautical 2 series? Well, yes and no. So let's check it out. This is the case that'll keep your Note 8 dry. Built-in screen protector and a semi-clear polycarbonate backplate, 360 degrees of coverage that can be a little too clingy at times. I highly recommend using a stiff flat edge or a coin to avoid ruining your manicure. The two-piece design is sealed with a rubber gasket around the flexible backplate and with foam lining around the main shell to keep your Note 8 from bouncing around. First things first, for all waterproof cases, test to make sure, well, it's actually waterproof. I recommend you do the scientific tissue tests with 30 minutes on the clock and some video editing magic. Bam! Once you dry off the outside, it's how wet the inside is that matters. And it looks like it's drier than my laundry. I couldn't think of anything else. It really only matters if it wasn't, because then you'll want to passively aggressively email their customer service about it. To install, wipe everything down, especially your sticky ass Note 8, because once in, it's a bitch to take out. Do the same on the inside of the case, then slide the phone into place and cover it up with the backplate. Start squeezing all around the edges to ensure it's tighter than your girlfriend. Looking around the case, the buttons do stick out quite a bit, which is great for when underwater and not having to fiddle around with finding where they are. Although a little stiff, they do provide a clicky response. The top mic is sealed off with a thin layer, but does allow sound to pass through. And around back is where most issues arise. First, the plastic screen over the camera is great to keep the lens covered from the outside world, but it also leaves a gap, which causes a reflection issue with the flash. This can be seen during video footage like a hazy filter on the bottom left, and can be even more evident in photos when it's a burst of light, sometimes completely covering the image. Testing out the Ghostek Nautical 2 case, the audio quality on the front camera, you can probably hear it muffled, and as I scrape my fingers on the case or move it around, you can probably hear some tapping or little rubbing ASMR sounds. That is, compared to this, without the case on, you can probably hear less tapping noises and definitely not as muffled. Aside from that, the fingerprint reader is weirdly misaligned, as they needed to use a flexible plastic covering around it to work. It unfortunately cuts into the side of it, which I found to cause more inaccuracies in reading my fingerprint, but not a deal breaker for me, as I tend to use facial or pin input as well. The bottom port covers are, well, too good at covering ports. They're sealed quite tightly and can require quite a bit of strength to open, which is actually a good thing when it comes to a waterproof case. They're all sealed with these gasket rings, and the headphone jack is quite deep and small. I was able to fit this tiny jack in, but you'll definitely need a headphone extender for anything else, which unfortunately is not included. Same situation for the USB-C port, but I test this Google USB-C cord, which is fairly large and barely fits in, but it does manage. And finally, the S Pen cover, which may be a deal breaker for users with large fingers. You'll need something thin to eject it first, then you'll need some sort of fingernail to claw it out. Again, an endangerment to your just did manicure. The front screen is completely covered, even the phone speaker, which we'll test in a bit, but for a built-in screen protector, it's one of the most responsive I've tested for any device. Even with the pen, light and hard strokes, it rarely missed any. There's a light gap between the screen, but isn't annoyingly noticeable during usage, like other cases that make you want to punch it in the face. But now, let's be real for a second. This is a big case, adding quite a bit of bulk to an already large phone, and about doubles the thickness too. In the pocket, although large, the Note 8 is manageable, but with the case on, it'll always look like you're happy to see me, like really happy. But don't worry, your beloved wireless charging does still work. A common issue with most waterproof cases are the sealed speakers, and the Nautical 2 isn't an exception. The sound gets muffled and is quieter even on the max setting when compared to a naked Note 8. The mics, especially during calls, can be a nuisance as well, as we're getting a similar muffled and quieter recording, which will cause your girlfriend to be extra annoyed at you for not listening to her. Me me mamo poo. Me me mamo poo. Me me mamo poo. Now, if you or your girlfriend isn't used to holding something this big as I am, you definitely can't ignore its size. Thankfully, the responsive screen does help with typing accurately and just interacting with the phone. And while the edges are smooth rubber, it's not slippery, and the caved-in bumper allows your finger to grab onto something. Although it doesn't make it any easier to use one-handed, so I highly recommend you attach the included hand strap on, because when you drop it underwater, and you will given its size, you won't have to go on a treasure hunt for your phone. Of course, that is what you're after factor with this case, because although the Note 8 itself is already IP68 waterproof certified, it's only good for a clean splash from your smart water or usage in the shower, but not in environments such as salt water, which can build up gunk inside your ports and cause you a lot of pain and suffering down the road to clean. Hence why I say the tight port covers on the Nautical 2 are so important. And even with all the annoyances earlier, it's the fact this case keeps your Note 8 dry when you need it to get wet, wherever you are. In my fancy scientific fish tank tests, it stayed dry throughout my slow-mo water flicking and splash scenes. And as a side feature to being fully sealed, it's also dust and dirt resistant as well. So if you work in such conditions like at a McDonald's, this may be your best protection against all those grease stains. Because when you're done, just take a bath with it, or not, whatever floats your boat. I did find during these tests for cold water conditions, although fine inside the water, after taking it out of the water, the camera cover did fog up on the inside. With the back camera flash on and the fogging up from the cold water, you get this kind of foggy, cool fade layer Instagram filter on your video, which some of you may like, but for, I guess, myself, it's not something, you don't get that crisp shot, and the audio probably is kind of muggy right now too. Without the flash on though, it's a little bit better. You still get some smudges from the fog from the cold water, but I'd say it's still pretty usable, I guess. In terms of protection, you can save yourself some agony if you just listened to me earlier, use the damn strap. But if you're a big ol' stubborn person, the case does have a thick rubber bumper with extra padded corners for impact absorption, the built-in screen protector for scratch resistance, a polycarbonate back for the full 360 degrees coverage, and raised bezels around the whole case to keep it lifted on flat surfaces, which does a fairly good job at protecting an already large device. I can count on this case to take a beating. I was also curious how well the semi-transparent back stood up to scratches, so let's test it out. Yeah, in the pocket day to day, it'll be fine. It took quite a bit to cause this, so over time it will show some wear and tear. Just don't pretend it's a scratch card like I did. In the end, I find the case to be a very specific use case. Great at what it's intended for, to keep your phone dry and sealed from the outside world, but not great as a daily driver with the flash, fingerprint, and the S Pen reach annoyances. The case is great as a specific tool for a specific purpose, just don't expect it to replace all your other tools. Personally, I find waterproof cases are more of an occasional type of use compared to a daily driver type of case. Although it's great at what it does, which is keep your Samsung Note 8 dry, it comes at a cost of usability which can be unbearable on a day-to-day basis. But if you're going on a very fun trip or plan on jumping into a pool, the Nautical 2 case has you covered. If you're just looking for a tough case though, there are much more affordable options like Ghostek's own Atomic Slim or Cloak 3 series. A big thanks to Ghostek for sponsoring the cases and review. It's a huge support for what I do on this channel, but I had complete creative freedom and all opinions expressed are from my own brain. That's it. If you love what you see and want to support me in creating more reviews, check out my new store linked below for accessorizing me merchandise like this hat and shirt, along with old accessories I no longer use and you can pick up at a bargain price. Like and subscribe if you want to see more, and leave a comment below letting me know what case you want me to review next. I rest my case.